Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Sippin On Country. My guest today is Lil Skinny.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like that's weird when I say Lil with a British accent.
No, I like it. It's awesome.
There's a handful of things that I say, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
Well, you nailed it. It's perfect.
There we go. So just give us a little kind of brief overview about you and what you do and how you kind of ended up here in Nashville.
So it's kind of a lot of stories. So first off, yes, my name's Lil Skinny. As you were probably wondering, no, I'm not a rapper. But I'm been deeply influenced by country and southern rock music my whole life. And I grew up in Nashville, Arkansas.
Okay.
And then when I was 15, I moved to Murfreesboro, Arkansas. I moved here. And so I got really deep into music at a young age. I started on the drums when I was 12. And then I started playing and singing for about, when I was 15, for about 6 months. And I wound up on a TV show called American Idol.
Never heard of it.
Right, not me either. Yeah,
No.
So I ended up on a TV show called American Idol. And then I came out to Nashville when I was 21, 22 after I graduated from college, and I actually went back on American Idol then as well. And after being back on American Idol a second time, I graduated college, and after graduating college 2 weeks, I moved to Nashville, chase a dream. So
I mean, it's the place to be, you know.
Yes, I love it.
If you want to do it. So let's real quick. Let's touch on American Idol because I know that there are a ton of ways nowadays to kind of carve that path into music. There's no right or wrong way, and there's so many avenues. But obviously within the last, I guess 20 years now that we've had the talent shows. I mean, how does that look? What's that whole experience like? Because I know that people can have positive and negative experiences from these, because what you see on the TV is what they are portraying, but being a part of the show,
it's a different perspective for sure. So when I was 15, that was the first time I was on American Idol, and it was night and day from the second time I was on American Idol, actually, because the first time was the farewell season. American Idol was done, it was ending, it was never coming back.
So that was the judges
then so there were Keith Urban, Harry Connick Jr., and Jennifer Lopez.
Okay.
So it's been a minute. It's been about going on 10 years now since those episodes aired. So it was kind of quite the experience because back then when it was on Fox Network, it was real industry based, and so like Big Machine was involved, Scott Purcell was involved, different people were involved, and it was really about who's the talent that we can maybe take to the next level. Nowadays, it's kind of geared towards ABC. So the second time I was on it was Luke Bryan, Lionel Richie, and Katy Perry. And so it was real kind of, family-friendly, reality TV, more focused on the stories and the drama, not as much as the music, which was fine. It was just a little different way of navigating the contest. So it was pretty cool. I ended up making it to the top 40 and just taking away all the different experiences I've learned from that TV show has been just helpful in my career all around. So
I imagine it's just kind of like, I don't know, trying to do that like on steroids, because it's just you're constantly in front of cameras and having to
play the part.
But I mean, you got to meet the judges.
Of course.
I mean, what was that like, getting to just interact with people? I mean, all three of them are, kind of at the top of their game in their genres.
Yeah. It was pretty inspiring and it really helped me, coming to Nashville in a way, because I was able to really kind of get personal with some of them and talk to them and realize they're just people like me and you. And that was what was really cool about that experience. So when I was able to come to Nashville and, at any given moment, you can bump into one of your, favorite artists or idol or somebody that's iconic in your world of, music or even TV or anything. It's, it's not uncommon to, bump into somebody in Nashville. So that experience really helped me deal with that here in Nashville when I do get to talk to somebody that I look up to and get to treat them, just like, having a conversation with you right now. So
I love that about Nashville, and it's definitely something that is touched upon. I think almost every episode that I've done is just how personable people are here. and how easy it is to connect, with the heavy hitters in the country music industry. That you can, doesn't matter where you are, you could be at Starbucks and run into someone. And the nice thing is, there's very few people who have an issue with actually just stopping and taking 5 minutes and saying hi. Most people are really happy to just be like, oh, and are genuinely interested, like, hey, what do you do?
Right.
As opposed to, and like, I've had people introduce themselves to me, and I'm like, these like Grammy winning artists. I'm like, obviously I know who you are, but I feel like that says a lot, that even at the height that some people are in town, that they'll still put their hand out and shake your hand and say, hi, I'm, whoever.
Right. I always call Nashville the biggest small town I've ever been to. And it's the vibe you get from this town. And it's pretty awesome to, be in a community where everybody tries to lift each other up,
It's special, and I know I've said it before, but I've not been to LA and I've not been to New York, so I can't speak for what the industry is like in those places.
Yeah. I've been to both, and Nashville is a special place.
And this is what I've heard. Yeah. This is what I've heard. I think I would be disappointed, because I feel like I'd have this expectation that there would be the same sense of community as there is here. And I love that, because I think for people like yourself, trying to make it, it opened so many more doors. There really isn't anything that's off limits,
right?
And I think that it means that if you've got that drive and you are going to work, to a degree, anything is possible. I think it's things are a lot more attainable here, and I think that's really nice.
My dad always gave me a great quote of advice, is that the definition of luck is preparation meets opportunity. And I always say that Nashville's a land of opportunities, so you have to be prepared when those opportunities come. And so if you're able to capitalize on them, take advantage of them when the time has arrived, this town will take you to some pretty special places.
Right. Luck, you make your own luck, for sure. You can, there's 100% being in the right place at the right time. But if you are ready for that, to go, hey, this is happening, let's do it.
Of course, yeah.
That is the key. So you moved from Arkansas, which is only from here, I guess it depends where.
Well, I'm from South Arkansas, so I'm about an hour north of Texarkana, which is the Texas line. So I'm pretty far. So it's about 6.5, 7 hours from here.
So that's a solid drive.
Yeah, about right under 500 miles.
So before moving here, had you traveled back and forth to Nashville previously?
I did some work up here in Nashville with different people. I started working with Kent Wells, because Kent Wells was from my area, and so Kent's a great producer, and it was a pretty great mentor with me when I started coming up here. But then, in the process of me coming up here, he started working on the Dolly Rockstar album, and so that took a lot of his time, and so I continue being the hustler I am, to kind of started working into other opportunities, and then I found Jimmy Ritchie and Jimmy Catino. And that's when I started getting into my deals now. But I first started working with Kent, so I was kind of in the process of coming back and forth from one Nashville to the other, and it was pretty cool getting to get that experience, and it made me want to finish college. And after I graduated college, like I said, I'd been graduated for about 2 weeks, and I was like, all right, Nashville it is. Yeah, let's go. So
let's talk a little bit about the Dolly's album. A lot of the industry, I feel like, is who in terms of
course.
Again, like you said, the preparation and opportunities. And I'm right in thinking you actually ended up singing some backing vocals on that record.
Yeah, I got singing like 5 or 6 tracks on Dolly's last album, doing background vocals, which was really cool. I just got a call from Kent one day, a couple of days before. He's like, hey, man, what are you doing on a Wednesday? And I said, man, I'm not sure. He's like, well, I need you to come in here and sing some vocals for me, to be a few of y'all together and just kind of sing some choir stuff, and you kind of take high and low ends at times. It's just come in, it'll be real easy. It's a lot of covers that you probably no. I was like, all right, cool. So and didn't get nothing to prepare or anything, just walked in on Wednesday and we started singing on these tracks. Mind you, I still don't know who this is for, and then I started hearing Dolly's voice. It's like, this is for Dolly. He's like, yeah, don't worry about it, just keep singing. I was like, oh, cool, we're singing on Dolly's record. No big deal. It's awesome.
It's
So
just, another day at the office.
yeah,
right?
another day at the office, and it was it was quite a great experience. And then the funny part was I kind of forgot about it. We did that all day long, and then I had a birthday party to get to, and so ran to that birthday party and went and played at that and had a great time. And after a couple months, kind of forgot I even did it. Well, fast forward about a year later, I get this invite in my email, and it said, "Hey, you're invited to Dolly Parton's Rockstar listening party." And I was like, "Oh, cool! We'll get to be there. You get a chance to meet and greet Dolly." And it says you get a +1. And first, my mom's a huge Dolly Parton fan, so I called Mom and said, "Hey, I got an invite. I got to see on Dolly's record," and she forgot about it too. She's like, "Oh my goodness, that's great. They're going to put it out." She's like, "You know who your +1 is, right?" I said, "No." She goes, "Me." I was like, "You're right, Mom. Come with me." So we went and met Dolly, and Dolly grabbed her up, and that was probably one of the coolest moments to see her react to my mom. It was really awesome.
Amazing. What a great experience to have. That's awesome. And the fact being on the Rockstar album, obviously that was her, like, she's doing all these rock covers. And your style of country,
country southern rock. I've always been a rocker growing up. You definitely
like in that kind of, I feel like you're kind of in that like Lynyrd Skynyrd pocket of like southern rock crossing to country. You've definitely got that sound.
And I also have a huge blues influence as well. So I grew up, my first gig I ever played I was 14, and I played drums and guitar in a band, so I swapped off.
At the same time?
So not at the same time. That'd be some real talent. But no, so I started on drums, and then we were kind of in the mix of guitar players. So there was one guy to do some songs, and I would learn the other songs. And so my first gig was at Rum Boogie's on Bill Street when I was 14, and that was really awesome experience. And then I played on Bill Street off and on for 3-4 years, and then when I was 18, I went to college. I started getting really heavily influenced into Texas country, and then after a couple of years after that, I ended up coming up here to Nashville and getting really influenced with the Nashville songwriters and Nashville scene. And I would sit up in my dorm room late at night at college and watch a bunch of old Bluebird tapings when they did the Bluebird TV show, way before the show Nashville. Kind of gave a lot of exposure to the Bluebird. They did some live recordings there, so I just sit there and get real infatuated with the Nashville songwriters and Nashville songwriting community. So it's been a dream to be able to be signed to a publishing deal here and call a bunch of these guys my peers now, which is really awesome. It's wild. A dream come true.
I feel like, I know, man, I feel like that's also just such a Nashville thing. I have people here that I know, and I'm like, if you'd have told me like 10, 15 years ago, hey, you're going to be friends with so-and-so, I'd be like, what?
Right, yeah.
Whatever. Like, yeah, it's insane. But I mean, that goes to speak just for the scene here and how everyone is.
Yeah.
So from Bill Street to Texas country to Nashville, I mean, all three incredibly different, but also a ton of crossover.
Of course.
In all of them. I mean, for playing down on Bill Street, I know, I've spoken to people before that are like, why are we going to go down Broadway or Bill Street, and play covers when we can play our own music and go over to Writers' Nights? I personally have always been a big advocate for going out and playing covers, because I feel like when you're playing other people's songs, you're not standing and playing a deep album cut that no one's ever heard, right? You're playing the hits because that's what people are going to want to hear when they're at a bar. And undoubtedly, when you're playing those, it means you have to hear the song. You have to know what you're playing, and then you learn, like, hey, this is the same in this song as this song. Like, here's what makes a hit.
Right.
Here's what people love. And I think that's great. I mean, what are your kind of opinions on?
So I did a lot of cover gigs growing up and playing the bar scene in Arkansas, not just in, did the Bill Street thing, and then went down and played a bunch of bars and did a bunch of Texas covers and stuff. And so I did lots of different, genres of cover music. And I feel like it's a great way when you're first starting out or first trying to, discover self, who you are as an artist. When you're trying to discover, your originality, I feel like it's really important to play cover music because it helps, craft your chops. You're crafting your art in a way. And then once you kind of play all these different styles of covers and different genres, you kind of figure out what you're best at and what you're good at, and then you can kind of hone in on that with your songwriting,
Right.
and then you start building a brand. I mean, like just like with Lil Skinny, or if you have a name that's not a nickname, you're building a brand, so to speak. So I feel like you're able to take the covers that you've learned and the craft that you've tried to perfect, and then turn it and try to promote your brand with it.
So, and I love that you're using the term brand, because I feel like it's kind of hit and miss with people, but it is, ultimately, even, ignore even having the nickname, even going out, with your given name, that you're still not you. You're still promoting, you're putting out a version of yourself. Right. And whether that version is authentic or not, it is still this is what people need to see, and it's a brand, and that's right. It. I think some people don't necessarily like the term, but it's true.
It's true,
you're building. When people hear the name Lil Skinny, what do they expect? Like, what are they wanting to see? And then that is it. That's your brand right there.
Of course, yeah. And my response to that is, I just want everybody to expect to have a good time. I've been known to kind of get wild on stage and shows and not know what's going to happen next, but just go out there and have a good time. And as long as people in the crowd are having a good time, that's my goal. So
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about the nickname. Like, where did that come from?
So my dad's nickname was Skinny.
Okay.
So I was Little Skinny.
There we go.
So I wish there was more wilder story to it, but there wasn't. I remember.
Easy question.
Yeah, it's easy question, easy answer. It's pretty funny. I remember the first time I was called a Little Skinny, and it just stuck with me. And I had a couple other nicknames through baseball and stuff that people called me, but Little Skinny just kind of stuck it out. And after I was on American Idol the first time, my last name is pretty hard to pronounce, so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to step back, and Little Skinny it is. So that's what I've stuck with. And it's kind of cool in a marketing way. I didn't realize how much it would work, but when I'm out, in a crowded place, or, don't have a lot of time with somebody, or if you're just around a lot of people who are drinking and having a good time in a bar, it's easy to say, hey, my name's Little Skinny, rather than, hey, my real name's Ethan Kuntz. Right. Everybody's like, Ethan who? And everybody, oh, that's Skinny over there. So
right, it's memorable, right?
Yeah, and it's been a great marketing tool, because people remember you out of a group of names the next day.
Rather than this just standard, it's having that nickname is definitely good for people just going, oh, wait, there was that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it stands out.
So when it comes to your music now, who would you say your biggest influences are musically? Like, obviously you say you've had a lot of different genres that you've kind of pulled from, but
right, I would say my music's definitely a melting pot of a lot of different genres, and it has a lot of different influences. My first big influence, of course, with the blues thing was I was a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan. And as any guitar player, most of them are. So I was a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan influenced. And then I had some guys down in Texas that were, descendants of a bunch of his teaching and stuff that took me under their wings and showed me a lot of stuff with the guitar. And then once I kind of got into Texas country, I was really influenced by like Randy Rogers and Wade Bowen and Whiskey Myers. And there's all this, whole different scene down in Texas a lot of people weren't hearing at the time. Kel Wetzel was big on the scene then on the come up. And so all these guys are coming up starting this whole different sound. And so I got really into that. And then when I started looking into songwriters in Nashville, I was really influenced by like Wendell Mobley and Neil Thrasher and then Rivers Rutherford and all these different guys that just are such huge talents. And then I kind of got turned on to Jimmy Ritchie, and then now Jimmy's like my mentor. And so it's cool to be able to work with these guys. And a couple different songs I've put out, I've written with Rivers Rutherford. And so like now it's starting to turn into from a dream to reality. So it's really cool to be inspired, but also be able to work with those people you're inspired by. So I would say I've been inspired by different genres, different artists, and so I can't really put one person on it. But
that's fair. And I think I like that as an artist. I think the more influence you can bring in, the more kind of well-rounded it makes you. And you say you've got a publishing deal in town.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So I mean, when you're writing as well, I feel like that's really important because, and I spoke about this with a previous guest, but the way it works in Nashville, for anyone that kind of isn't as aware, is especially when you've got these publishing deals and you're writing with these publishing companies, is there will be essentially sheets that will say, hey, you know, so and so is looking for a song,
Right.
and this song needs to be boom, boom, boom. You know, it needs to be an up tempo, this type of hit. And then
Song, yeah.
Right. So then to be able to go in and write that, having such an eclectic mix of music kind of already rolling around, you know, it makes it a lot easier to then draw from these other things and go, you know what, I know how we're going to approach this song and how we're going to write it. I mean, tell me a little bit about kind of your writing style and opportunities you've had through getting the publishing deal.
Yeah, so I really don't have a set writing style. I try to be open to creativity. So what I mean by that is just like whatever inspires me that day, whatever mood I'm in, I want to write that song. And so I know some people come in with a topic or a goal, like you say. That's also another writing style. Is like, hey, this is what we're going to write today. Let's try to write the best thing. But I'm just kind of whatever the vibe of the room is. Sometimes the songs can kind of write themselves just based on the conversation that starts in the room, because most mornings it starts with a cup of coffee at 11 a.m. and just talking about how people have been. And sometimes if you just kind of feel out that vibe, a lot of times you can pull a song out of those conversations, which is really cool. So,
which I think is, you never know what's gonna come up in conversation either.
Right.
You walk in, that's kind of a nice thing. It's very relaxed and you've got people to bounce off of. It only takes one person to say one line and you're like, hey, wait a minute. Like, what about?
And some of my favorite songs that we've written has been from, hey, what did you say that? Say that again. Right. Hey, what did you say that over there? And so it's cool how, you take it from just a conversation to start and it feels so natural and so, from the right place.
Do you have a preference in terms of how many writers you tend to work with? Because I know, the Nashville thing a lot, I've seen on a lot of songs, and I feel like it happened a lot. I feel like it happened a lot more in like the bro country era, but you would get tracks with, like 5-6 writers on. And I'm always I'm just always like, you've got all these ideas. It's hard to see how everyone can really be sitting in that room and kind of putting forward ideas in this song without it just getting a little bit chaotic.
Right.
But yeah.
So like, I don't really have a preference of how many writers we have in the room. I just kind of whatever makes the best song happen. I know sometimes I've started with just me and another person, and then by the time we finish it, we call people in, and maybe 4 or 5 on it. I normally don't try to get over 4 people in a room because it just kind of gets congested, and there's, sometimes you have a hard time finishing because everybody has an idea, and then just kind of turns into, a bigger puzzle than what you started with. But I've always been cool with just 2 or 3 people. Some of the coolest songs I've written have just been me and another person. And then I've also, before I moved to Nashville, I was big on writing everything by myself. And so I still tried to utilize that I can write songs by myself. And so there's times that I'll just kind of slip some of those into my publisher, and hopefully something happens with them. But
hey, you never know.
It's just
I mean, there's so many songs.
As long as you got a hook in the water, right? As long as you got some hooks in the water, you might catch something. So you never know.
That's it. It's never a bad thing to throw some bits out there.
Right, of course.
And you've also had the opportunity to write with some really great names as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I've got a song that we in the process of recording my vocal and Ward Davis's vocal on, which I'm a big fan of. Ward Davis has been on tour with Cody Jinks and a bunch of these different Red Dirt guys, and so I was a big fan of Ward because we're from the same area in Arkansas, and so it's really cool to write a song with him, and then him agreed to put his vocal on it, and let's put it out together. So that's going to be really cool. And that song is called "I Am This Town." And then I've actually had the opportunity to write with Zach Brown, and
amazing.
It was really awesome. And
I feel like that must have been a hell of an experience. He seems like he's very, trying to think of the word. Just, I mean, he's been doing it for so long, but I would imagine walking in there, I don't know what.
Yeah.
I can't think of the can't think of the words. We'll just cut this bit.
Yeah.
No.
It's so good.
But like he probably has a very good like sense of direction of kind of what he wants. I mean, what was it like?
Right. So Zach's really level-headed and was one of the kindest people ever written with, and it kind of all started with us just being out, hanging out in a bar in Nashville, and he doesn't really go out very often, but he happened to be out this night, and I bumped into him, and we had a cool conversation. I was like, hey, man, all right, cancel tomorrow. Would you want to ride tomorrow? I was like, dude, that'd be awesome. He's like, let me get your number, man. Send me a text, and I'll holler at you in the morning. I'm like, yeah, sure.
You'll
never
hear from
him.
him.
Never again. Well, I woke up next morning, sure enough, he said, hey, man, come over to my house tonight at 8 o'clock, and he had dinner prepared for us, and we sat and had dinner at his house and just talked about different ideas, and we landed on one and started it, and then he was like, man, come back over the next day and let's finish the song. So we finished the song, and then we went out that night and hung out until, wee hours in the morning. It was just a great experience.
Nice.
It's just like we were old friends. It was really cool how he's able to make that experience so memorable for me. So
that's awesome.
It was awesome.
That's so nice when you've got someone, of that caliber, to be able to be so level-headed and so down to earth and
just be your friend.
Right.
It was,
right.
And that's why I respect a lot of people for being able to do that. And a lot of them sometimes, have to separate, their business and their goals from, just being the best person you can be. So
I feel like that's very true to the Nashville industry.
Right.
And I don't necessarily know what the reason behind that is. Sometimes I wonder if there's not like a ton of media and stuff hanging around this town. Right. So if people people can go out and just do daily things without being, accosted at the supermarket. And if you see people, you're just used to seeing people around, so no one really
100%.
bothers them. And I wonder if that helps everyone just be a little more relaxed.
They say Nashville is country, and I feel like that's country music, and that's what it's supposed to be. Is country music, kind of stems from the small town folk, and where family's first, God's first, and love's first. And I feel like if you put all those things together and be the best and nicest person you can be, that's what country music is.
That is a very good definition, and I love that. Yeah, and that's very true.
And I just hope Nashville's able to stay and keep it country.
I think there's obviously been a lot of changes over the years, and I think a huge amount of those changes seem to have come over kind of the last decade or so, like 10, 15 years. It's kind of catapulted in a whole other direction in some ways. With that being said, it still feels like it's still, Nashville's still there. We haven't lost.
It's gotten a little bit smaller, but it's still, there's still those places that you can get those feelings and those vibes from. Yeah. And that's the reason I moved here, just because, I told myself I'd stay here as long as, Nashville would let me. And so far it's been so kind, and so many doors are opened up, and it's been so receiving that I don't think I'm leaving anytime soon. So
I love that. So you just had a single come out.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that song.
Yeah, so it's called Whiskey Pistol. I've written with Brandon Kenny and Dan Isbell, which is two other big writers here in town. Both, small town country boy guys like me. And so it actually started with just me, and this is funny that you were talking about the writing process, because this song just started with me and Brandon. And Brandon and I sat down, and he wasn't feeling too that good that day, and so we was like, man, let's just kind of land on an idea, maybe come back on it, and we probably won't spend too much time on it today. I was like, okay, cool. So we got to throwing out all kinds of stuff, and we didn't like anything, and we were about to throw in the towel, and he said something, and I was like, hey, I like that. Well, he was talking about, a whiskey pistol, like taking shots by a gun, but it's actually a bottle.
Yeah.
And so he's like talking about whiskey pistol, and we just kind of had this, this chorus. I'm 5 shots in on a whiskey pistol, and I still ain't knocked your memory down. That's all we had. And so we kept talking about it, and it's like 4 months later, we were texting back and forth. It's like, man, we got to get together and finish that. That's so cool, man. I was thinking of this today, and we kept talking back and forth, and so we thought about pulling Dan Isbell in on it. So we got a date with Dan, and Dan came in about 4 months later, and we finished the song, and it was cool. I got an awesome text from Brandon like a couple weeks later, and he was like, man, I can't. He said, I woke up today and I was like, what song am I singing? And it was that Whiskey Pistol song, man. You ought to cut that. And I was like, I think I ought to. So we recorded 9 songs, and that's the first one we're putting out. So I'm excited for everybody to hear it. It's out now, and I would encourage everybody to go stream it because it was a really fun song to write.
It's a great song as well, and
thank you so much.
It's catchy.
Yeah, it's one of those that you listen to it once or twice and you'll be singing it all day, which I guess that's our goal as a songwriter. So.
Right, that's it. You want the songs that are going to get stuck in people's minds.
Yeah.
And then they're at the supermarket and all of a sudden they're like, wait, what? Oh, that's the song. That's the song.
That skinny guy, man, he's stuck in my head.
That's it. That is the goal. That is the goal. So, and you say that was one of 9.
Yeah, so one night, so we've got a few demos, and some of them we decided to keep and put out, and the other ones we pitched. But in that session that day, we recorded 9 songs. Wow. We still finished early. That's a sign of a good band and a great producer. So I'm thankful for the team I've got around me to help me chase what I love. So
I love that. So this single is out now. So you got Whiskey Pistol, which people can go find on all streaming sites. They can download all that jazz.
Yes, yeah, and there's a link in my bio of my social media. So if you go to my Instagram, my TikTok, my Facebook, it's there on a link. You can just click that link and find my music. So
that's nice. And your social media sites are just under.
Yeah, it's under LIL_Skinny_music. If you just type in Lil Skinny, I'm the white guy with long hair.
It will come up. There you go.
Yeah.
So moving forward we've got. Just under half of the year left for 2024. Now that music release schedule, people want stuff now. They want things constantly.
Yeah.
So how does that look for you with releasing new music? And is this going to culminate in an EP or an album? What's your plan for that?
Right now, we're just kind of been throwing out singles. I'm pretty early in my career, so we're just trying to throw out singles to see what sticks, see what people are liking. And we just kind of, we went everything from swampy to honky tonk to, fast and slower. And so we're kind of jumping all around here. Right now, so it looks like we're about every 2 months we've been trying to drop a single, and then we're hoping to turn that into an EP or an album. And so right now I'm kind of been flirting with the idea of putting out a couple more singles and then turning it into album, and hopefully put 2 or 3 more with it. So we'll just kind of see what happens. We've been burning through these rights and getting a lot of great songs, and so we got a catalog built up that I'm excited to share with everybody. So.
I love that. So when you're writing with your publishing company, what's the process? If you walk into a write and you go, hey, I love this song, I want to cut it myself.
Right.
Is there an expectation on that the songs you're writing in those rights with your publishing company are going to go out to be sent for outside cuts? How does that kind of work?
What's cool with me being an artist and a writer at the same time, which I think I forgot to mention before, I'm signed with Drop Time Music and Sony ATV as a joint venture. So it's really cool, getting to be with some of the bigger writers, and Sony be able to give me those opportunities to do that. So being in the Sony rooms down on Music Row, a lot of times with, me being with 1, 2, maybe 3 writers that are strictly just songwriters, me being the artist in the room, it's kind of naturally, first dibs for me to cut it if I want to. So that's what's really cool about being able to write with these guys, is that they're they do encourage for me to cut it, but sometimes I never want to get my taste or my musical influence to get away with a great song,
right? And
so I always encourage everybody that they're like, hey, what do we want to write today? My response is always, well, let's write the best song we can write, and we'll just see where the home goes. Right. Yeah, find it a home somewhere.
I love it. If it happens at the end of that write, if it happens to be something where you're actually, no, this is definitely
for somebody else. Yeah, 100%. And that's what and that happens sometimes. We talk about, hey, and nobody's been able to cut anything of mine yet, but hopefully it'll happen. It's we're pretty soon in the process, but it has been brought up in times hey, if you like this, go ahead and cut it. But I really hear so and so on this, let's send it to them. And we've tried that, and I think it's a really cool process to not be so closed-minded of just songs that I want to cut. So
I think it's hard sometimes. I know for some writers that not kind of wanting to let go of those songs, especially if you're walking into a write and you've got something very personal, right. It can maybe be a little harder. But also it's important to have that song go out and grow and be the best version of that song that it can be.
Yeah.
But also that, this stuff takes time. Like, for the life of me, the song title has gone from my mind, but I remember there was a Keith Urban song that by the time he cut it, the song was 10 years old.
Yeah.
Like, it had literally been written a decade
behind. That's like Where the Wild Things Are comes. It took 7 years for that song to be cut. But the first time I heard it, I was like, man, this is a no-brainer. How dare it take this long for it? But that's just naturally how the process is.
It's such anything creative. I think the thing is that not everyone likes the same stuff, and so all it takes, like, you love that song, I love that song. Tons of people will love it because Luke Combs did the song.
Right, of course.
But when you just hear that demo, it only takes it to go to the person on this desk instead of the one next to him. And they're like, it's good, but this isn't what we're looking for.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it just goes and gets filed away for another however long. And there's so many songs.
Right, of course. And I tell everybody, the song always wins. A lot of people, you eventually, after a few songs or a few albums, you fall in love with the artist. But that takes with time, but you can instantly fall in love with a song, and that's what puts somebody on the map. It doesn't matter who wrote it or who's able to deliver it. Everybody is going to remember. Majority is like, hey, I can't remember who done that song, but you remember this one song that sounds like this, and so I feel like the song is always the winner.
One-hit wonders.
Right.
That there are some artists, they could release albums and albums.
They may not know who they are,
right,
but they know that song.
That one song.
Yeah, song
that
always
does it.
wins, for sure.
And I think it's also interesting that, those songs take on another life when they then get cut by an artist, because a lot of the demos sound almost, other than the fact that, the melody is kind of the same, sound almost nothing like that demo that was cut to what ends up on a record.
Of course.
You got all the post-production and everything that goes into it, as opposed to this demo track that you went in the studio and did real quick, and and I think that's really cool. It would be cool if people could hear the demos behind a lot of these songs, because I think people would be really surprised about.
I always ask for them, because those are really inspiring to me, to hear where the song started and where it gets to, and I feel like it's it's really important as an artist to know that one song can change your life, so you're always searching for the next one. So.
And I guess do you find that when you're writing in terms of getting cuts with other artists, that especially the bigger artists now, they have their team around them, everyone seems to want to write for themselves,
right?
And I feel like that's made it harder for then outside people to come in and get those cuts, because Carrie Underwood, for example, I know that she writes, I think, a lot on her newer stuff. But if you're not in that circle, how much of a look in do you stand to get if you want a cut from Carrie? If she's got a 12 song record and she's co-written 10 of them, that leaves two spots potentially.
Right. Of course, yeah. And inside and outside songs are definitely the name of the game right now in the music industry. And we always call inside songs as the songs that you have to write with the artist, artist is a writer on. And I'm just as bad about that, but I've really started trying to open up my mindset of listening to songs that, because like I said, the song that may change my life may not be the one that I've written or something that means something to me, but it's a song that I can sell or deliver in a way that could be life changing. And I feel like it's really it's really a big deal to start listening outside songs again for artists, and and being open minded and let the best song win. It doesn't have to be one that you've written, because a great song is a great song at the 100%. End of the day. And I know I've also noticed that sometimes just because somebody's already cut the song doesn't mean that it can change your life. There's just kind of like Luke Combs' The Fast Car is a great example. Fast Car was a hit for Tracy Chapman, but Luke Combs was able to blow it up and make it a hit.
And it opened up 20, a door 30 years for later, a whole other audience.
Audience, and that's what I think is great songs are great songs. So I've also seen, songs that take, it gets cut by 3 different artists, and like the third artist make it a hit. So, it's just, you never know. Like, there's many ways to do it, but your way is the most important.
Right.
So.
Well, and also all these songs, you're sitting in a writer's room and you're writing this stuff that's maybe personal to you.
Right.
But just because you have a track that someone else has written, that doesn't mean that it can't resonate with you.
Yeah.
Like most experiences are shared.
Right.
And it's interesting. I listened to another podcast. Actually, it was a true crime podcast.
Yeah.
But they were talking about the fact, and I think this rings true for when you're listening to songs, is that when you read the news or, you see someone had a bad experience and it upsets you, right? Like, or you watch a movie and you cry at the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's because your mind doesn't disassociate that this event is happening to someone else.
Right.
Your mind thinks what you're watching on the TV, you're experiencing that. Right. And that's where the emotion comes from. And I think that's the same with when you're listening to a song. You're not listening to it going, oh, okay, Don't Take the Girl, Tim McGraw.
Of course.
Right?
Great
You
song.
listen to that song, you're not listening to it going, oh, well, this other person's experiencing it, so whatever. Like, you hear it, and the whole time you're like, well, that could be me, like that.
Right.
And that's what your mind is interpreting, which is why you, like, being able to resonate with these things. So just because you've got an outside cut, you don't have to lose any of that.
Right. And that's what's cool is, like, I have seen artists that, have cut outside songs and taken a song that, only the writer can, express a certain way because that's their song, but also taking that song and expressing it your way and making it your own is such an art as well. And, there's been guys like George Strait's a great example to be able to take any song that's outside song and make it his own. Mm-hmm. And be able to express it and sell it is really a gift in art. And I feel like that's, it takes those right artists to be able to do that, for sure.
So when you move into, are you looking at having an EP or an album out this year? Or so by the end of 2024?
Or hopefully, it may be right at the top of 2025 is when we're kind of
right in time.
So.
Or just like right in time for Christmas.
Christmas, yeah. So Christmas probably right after New Year. I could see, us putting out one more song this fall, and then by the time New Year hits, hopefully hit up, drop an album with a few more songs on it. So it'd be cool, yeah.
And then in terms of getting out and playing shows, promo, getting the songs out there and getting them heard, what does that look like for you?
So I am a busy guy. I try to play around 150 to 200 shows a year. So I'm always playing and traveling. And so I've been everywhere from Utah and Ohio the last week, and then we're going out back to Arkansas, and we got a few shows here in Tennessee, and then hopefully we go out to San Diego, and then we're just going everywhere. And so got a couple shows coming up, one with Rodney Atkins and Tyler Farr and a few other people. So I'm really looking forward to the future, and keeping the road hot and keeping the planes up in the sky and just keep steadily traveling and meet new fans. That's what it's about.
And you've got to get out there, right?
Yeah, sure.
You've got to get out there and do that. I guess it is outreach. It just felt like a weird word.
Of course,
but, to get out there and be in front of the fans who are then going to buy your music. And I think country music fans, for the most part, are very loyal. So if you can get in front of them and you can bring someone on board, they're probably going to stick with you as well.
For a while, that's what's cool. The thing about, being in the music industry is you get to meet some really great people and really great friends that, even though that you're probably changing their life with your music, they're changing your life in the process. And sometimes they don't ever think about that, but it definitely happens. So that's one of my favorite things about being an artist and getting out there and playing in front of audiences. So.
I love that. So for anyone who has not checked out your music yet, please go and do so.
Thank you.
I think what you're putting out right now is, especially in Nashville, it feels like something different. It's very authentic Southern rock.
Well, thank you.
And I don't think that a lot of people are putting that out here right now. It's a lot more kind of country based. It's definitely a resurgence of the older country, which I love, and it's not a bad thing. But
of course,
I definitely think you've got, you've got your little niche right now.
Yeah, and I feel like, like Morgan Wallen and Avery Zimmerman, they got that thing covered. I won't be able to do it like they can, but I can also, I feel like I can bring...
Never.
Right, of course, you never know, but I feel like I can also bring my style and something different to the table to, make it a full course meal.
There you go. So. I absolutely love it, and I think, that the industry is changing every day, and what people want and what consumers want to hear is changing all the time, and I think there is really a solid place for that southern rock sound. Guys, Whiskey Pistol is out right now. Please go check that out. Head over to social media, TikTok,
Instagram, Facebook,
all the medias, all the things. Head over, and I guess you'll have stuff up when you've got your next singles and that coming out. So keep a track, go stream, buy, get out to shows. You're going to be everywhere, it sounds like.
Yes, I am.
Is there anything else?
I don't think so. Just thank you for having me.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, we are going to be back next week with another episode of Sippin On Country. Today's guest, Lil Skinny. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Recorded at 2300 Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Original theme music by Gary Wood.